One Punch Man and Kaiju No. 8 are two battle manga series known for their use of mysterious beings such as kaijins and kaijus, two series that are home to some of the coolest well-designed creatures in the game. In this video, I'll be matching Kaiju No. 8 against the majority of the monsters in One Punch Man to figure out which disaster level should Kafka fall into. I'll be going over their strengths, speed and abilities, all in order to determine how strong is Kafka compared to the One Punch Man verse. But before, if you like these types of content, do consider subscribing and liking this video for more of these future battle type series. Thank you. Kaiju is a Japanese term that is commonly associated with media involving giant monsters, a subgenre of science fiction. This term can also refer to the giant monsters themselves, which are usually depicted attacking major cities and battling either the military or other monsters. And one of the most famous series, Godzilla, is considered to be the first ever kaiju film in Japan. Nowadays, many series, whether it's anime or manga, has taken that same concept and employed it in their general plot. Best examples are manga like Versus, Hakaiju, One Punch Man, Shingeki no Kyojin, and more importantly, Kaiju No. 8. Kaiju No. 8's manga, similar to One Punch Man, also holds different kinds of monsters that are classified strength-wise based on the fortitude they demonstrate to measure their potential threat to humanity. And kaijus whose fortitude exceeds No. 8 are considered to be a rarity that only elite officers can ever hope to stand a chance against. However, there exists a kaiju that exceeds that number, with possessing a fortitude level of 9.8 that is considered to be the highest recorded fortitude in history. And that monster is none other than Kaiju No. 8, which means he should be significantly stronger than any character we've seen in the series so far other than the elephant in the room, Kaiju No. 9. Now this is very important to note because super giant kaiju specifically displayed around 188 megatons of energy that puts them around mountain level of AP just by existing and walking. These are certainly considered a less of a threat compared to the identified kaiju that appeared in the scene right after that chapter, with Kaiju No. 8 more importantly demonstrating a shockwave strong enough to put him at island level in terms of attack potency, with exerting force relative to that of 13 gigatons. This is without being amped by Isayu's martial arts troop style hand-to-hand combat, where the user channels the power created with the legs into their fists, so putting him at island level to island level plus of attack potency is definitely viable for a general sense of scaling. This is further substantiated with all of the 5 identified kaijus that are above mountain level in terms of attack potency, stating that they are supposed to team up just to take him down. In fact, this is only when accounting for base Kaiju No. 8, as the increased fortitude of his attacks paired with the unconventional ways of combat should push his attack potency even further. As stated by Kafka himself, that the parasite can draw more of his innate monstrous power better than he ever could, although putting exactly a number of how much it does is a bit tricky. But nonetheless, his durability should scale relative to his attack potency, as there are no evidence to suggest otherwise. Now, when it comes to how fast Kaiju No. 8 can fight and react, way early on in the series, in chapter 16, we can clearly see that 9 can react decently fast to Reno's rifle shots. These were capped at 21,000 miles per hour, making it high hypersonic. This is particularly notable since characters currently has surpassed these types of speed, as 9 before evolving was getting blitzed by Kafka numerous times, who himself was having a hard time to keep in track of Hoshina's movements. Hoshina later attains a new suit called Numbers Weapon 10 that considerably amped his combat abilities, specifically speed, to the roof, and even with utilizing 100% of his suit's power, he struggled so hard to defeat Kaiju No. 12. But based on a gather effort of 5 identified kaijus, including No. 12 required to defeat No. 8, you might be able to argue that he scales much higher. With this, a conservative and a lowball estimation to No. 8's speed should be massively hypersonic, and bear in mind that this isn't even accounting for the difference between the identified kaijus and evolved 9, whose leagues above all of them currently being relative and fighting against No. 8. But nonetheless, kaijus being capable of exerting island level of attack potency should already be very impressive, especially since that correlates to their durability levels. Now add that with the ability to regenerate even a lost limb if they wanted to, as long as they maintain their regenerative core and hold enough stamina to do so. Kaiju number 8 is considered to be a Saitama in his verse, annihilates most of his opponents in one single punch, not leaving a single trace. His current fight with number 9, who could match him in strength, should give more insights of how strong he is. But regardless of that, how would Kafka fare up against the One Punch Man monsters? If you are one of these people who has fantasies of wanting to live in an anime world without having special powers, then the One Punch Man verse should definitely not exist in your list. I mean, the very first 2 panels of its actual manga clearly shows people dying from a monster called Vaccine Man who literally spawned out of nowhere. Not to mention Beefcake aka Maruguri, who just by falling down destroyed a whole city, killing thousands of people. These types of monsters are classified based on their threat level to humanity, and unlike the hero's rankings, threat levels do indeed reflect on the strength of a monster, meaning a demon can straight up not defeat a dragon level threat if not misplaced. Now, it's very important to explain or rather clear a big misconception regarding the threat level definitions. In my crossverse videos, I often read comments of people telling me that since demon level threats can destroy a city, and cities in One Punch Man can be as large as countries, then their strength should be put at country level in terms of attack potency. You see, I would agree with that, except that the definition doesn't really say a demon can straight up destroy a city, but rather a threat to the city. Yes, for sure, there are characters who holds that type of destructiveness, but it doesn't mean it applies to every demon or dragon level threat. Each monster specializes on something specific that makes them a threat to a city, whether it's destructiveness or something entirely else. Take Cosmic Fear Garu per example, being a threat to humanity just by emitting cosmic radiations. It doesn't need to destroy the planet to be classified in the god level category. With that being said, there are approximately 48 demons, 30 dragons, and arguably 4 gods. Wolves and tigers would not be mentioned in this video since demons and dragons makes up a staggering large percentage of monsters in the series. Now, starting with demons, to get a general sense of their strength, Janos destroying the House of Evolution was capped at between town to city level in terms of attack potency. However, there exists a tweet from Murata back in 2018 stating that when he blew up the House of Evolution hideout, he also blew up the mountain. This is honestly flabbergasting, since if you say Janos back then held mountain level of AP, then characters like the Deep Sea King, who tanked his upgraded Incinerate head-on, also holds mountain level plus of durability. But you see, most of the power scaling community considers this feat an outlier, since characters who are stronger than Janos has never replicated that kind of feat. So fairly speaking, whether this feat is valid or not, unless another demon can replicate the same feat, would still range that attack from town to city level in terms of attack potency. So putting characters like the Deep Sea King and above at city to large city of attack potency is definitely viable for a general sense of scaling demons in this series. Now, moving to dragons, it's pretty self-explanatory that when it comes to these particular monsters, their general destructiveness and attack potency varies vastly from one to another. You have a cadre like Homeless Emperor displaying around 2.4 to 4.8 gigatons of energy that puts him around mountain to island level in terms of destructiveness. And the funny thing about it all is that Homeless Emperor can spam this attack limitlessly. According to Super Mouse, the cadres are chosen because of their destructiveness, meaning most cadres should scale close or relative to Homeless Emperor. However, these monsters are still considered a less of a threat compared to the high tier dragons such as Orochi, Platinum S, and Psycho Orochi, who her casual attack splitted a continent in two easily, with Platinum S's merger putting him at small country to continental levels of AP, and Orochi's Gaia Cannon displaying around 5,000 exatons of energy that puts him around small planet level in terms of destructiveness. With all of this being said, dragon level monsters in general varies from mountain to small planet level in terms of AP. Now, when it comes to how fast monsters can react and fight in One Punch Man, there exist various calcs depicting nerfed Deep Sea King and Sonic moving at least at massively hypersonic speeds. However, within the realm of demons, another fellow monster called Awakened Cockroach stated that he can react and dodge at the speed of light. This wouldn't be far-fetched since characters has been seen dodging lasers that were confirmed to have the properties of light, meaning it's up for you to choose which meta you want to take. Either demon level monsters can move and react at the speed of light, or their speed varies from massively hypersonic to massively hypersonic plus. However, dragon level monsters are a whole different breed. This was perfectly displayed with Sonic and Galewind, who was literally able to blitz him instantly, which means that these characters at a global estimation can react and move at relativistic to light speeds level, with the high tier speedsters in the dragon level category can easily operate at faster than light plus levels. This isn't even accounting for Lightning Max lightning speed and Moomin Rider actually dodging lightning in the webcomics, but nonetheless, most monsters in One Punch Man has never shown any signs of fatigue. They either get blasted or they would just not get tired. Some can regenerate and others can even evolve. With all of this being said, can Kaiju number 8 be classified as a strong monster in the One Punch Man verse? Now, Kaiju number 8 would fit perfectly in the One Punch Man verse. With his decent stats and abilities, he'll definitely be considered as an anomaly and can still be able to compete. But if Kafka is considered as a monster by the Hero Association, what threat level would he be? Now, to answer that question, let's start with comparing him with the demons, since he is obviously not a wolf or a tiger. You see, since Kafka is sitting comfortably at island to large island of attack potency, it's pretty fair to deduce that number 8 is considerably stronger than most of the demons. In fact, you could even argue that the high tiers such as Bug God would not even be able to land a scratch on him due to the vast difference between their strength. However, some would argue that Kafka has been shown getting tagged and hurt by weaker attacks, as in chapter 18 he's seen being fairly damaged by Nine's projectiles even in his weakened state. These types of attacks are strong, but strong enough to do any type of damage to demon level monsters? I highly doubt it. However, it's also worth remembering that Kafka has been adapting and demonstrating better control over his kaiju form, became stronger in his base that now a fully charged punch from Kaiju 13 was stopped by him casually. Number 13 is one of the identified kaijus that scales above the super giant types who exerted mountain level of AP, meaning you can say pretty definitively that Kafka can indeed do the same to literally every demon level monster. But the most pressing matter when fighting against the One Punch Man verse overall for Kafka is specifically speed. The problem with Kaiju number 8 is that they do not necessarily have a direct line of scaling that can counter One Punch Man metas of speed. Kafka, depending on how much of a multiplier for a speed blitz, sits at massively hypersonic at best. This is a speed that even dehydrated Deep Sea King has surpassed, that has been overshadowed by many in the story. Take Genos for example, two-shotting hydrated Deep Sea King in the audiobooks, and that same Genos is still considered as mid to high demon at best, meaning despite the clear superiority in terms of attack potency, it'd still be considerably slower than most of the demons, but the demons would still objectively not be able to damage him. Strictly speaking, 8 could wait for them to attack and simply pin them with something like, I don't know, creating a mouth in his chest and one-shot them right after. You can even definitely argue that his berserk mode could get him to levels of speed beyond his to be at least able to predict and swiftly see his opponent's movements just before they make contact. But nonetheless, despite being pretty lacking in the speed department, Kafka would still have better chances in defeating demon level monsters. His durability can probably tank most of what the demons has to offer. Now, what about dragon level threats, the big dogs in the One Punch Man verse? Having said that Kafka desperately lacks speed in this context, and the only thing that guarantees his victory over demons is his tremendous attack potency, then sadly in this context, not only that most of the dragons can match his strength 9 out of 10 of the times, but also toy with him mercilessly with their superior speed. Saying that they can blitz him is literally an understatement. Don't get me wrong, he'd probably be able to defeat dragons like Scrummy Bean Sprouts, the Forest King, and maybe other low tier dragons that do not really possess great attack potency and doesn't necessarily rely on speed. But when talking about the big dogs such as Black Ass, Koketsu, and Homeless Emperor, his chances of winning decreases to almost zero. Not to mention the monsters above monsters such as Orochi, Platinum S, and Psycho Orochi, who can literally slice a continent casually. Ask yourself this: what can number 8 or any character from his verse be able to do other than just dying? With this context, the best threat you could put Kaiju number 8 at would be low to mid dragon if you wanna highball him to the absolute max. His biggest downfall is speed, and to put it bluntly, Kaiju number 8 would get completely stomped by One Punch Man's most vicious and powerful monsters, and this fight is not close. Meaning, you can say pretty definitively. Kafka depending on how much evil. Kafka depending on how much evil. Kafka depending on how much of a Strictly speaking, 8 could wait for them to attack and simply pin them to. Strictly speaking, what 8 could do here is that he would. Strictly speaking, 8 could wait. And Orochi's Gaia cannon displaying around 5 zetatons of. Zetatons? How do you say that? Zetatons. Zetatons, okay. And Orochi's Gaia cannon displaying around 5 zetatons of. I'll convert it, hold on. And Orochi's Gaia cannon displaying around 5,000 exatons of energy that puts him around